Okay, welcome 5th graders to another science test review. Today we're going to be talking about compounds. I guess the first thing that we should talk about is what is a compound. Now, a compound is when you get two or more elements and you combine them together. You get a compound, okay? Two or more elements combined together makes up a compound. For example, a really easy example is water. Water is a compound. Why? Because you have the element of oxygen and you have the element of hydrogen coming together, and then it's called a compound. Okay? So once again, a compound is when you have two or more elements that come together, combine together to make up a substance. Okay? For water is a substance, it is a compound because you have the element oxygen and you have the element hydrogen coming together to make a new substance. Okay? The chemical formula for water is H2O. That's called the chemical formula. Alright, so you'll see other ones. Sugar, for example, is C6H12O6. That's the chemical formula for sugar. It's C6H12O6. So you can see some chemicals get more or less complicated, okay? H2O is water is H2O. That's the chemical formula. Now these little numbers here, these are called subscripts. And that tells you how many atoms of that element are involved to make that compound. Okay? So the compound water is made up of two or more elements, hydrogen and water, hydrogen and oxygen. It takes two atoms of hydrogen and only one atom of oxygen. If there's no subscript next to the letter, that means there's only one atom involved. Okay, so those are called subscripts. That's the chemical formula. This is an example of a compound, two elements coming together to make a substance. How are compounds used? I guess we could talk about this now. Compounds are used to make gasoline. Compounds are used to make heating oil, clothing, rubber, and plastic. Okay, so we interact with compounds all the time. How do you identify different types of compounds? A good place to start is understanding the difference between chemical and physical changes. We've talked about chemical and physical changes before, but just a reminder, a physical change is when you do not have a new substance that's formed, but the substance just changes shape or form. No new substances are created. It just changes shape or form. For example, you can see the ice cream in the cone is all bundled up. It's cold. It's put together. It's kind of hard in the cone. But the sun is out. The ice cream accidentally falls off the cone and it lands on the sidewalk. When the ice cream melts, you can see the shape is different, but it's still ice cream. The shape and the form is different, but it is still ice cream. Nothing new, no new substance has been formed. Just the same substance has changed shape. Chemical changes, on the other hand, is a new substance is created. Something entirely new. Here's an example. If you have oxygen and that interacts with iron, you get a thing called rust. Rust is something that is completely new. It's an entirely new substance. Oxygen plus iron gives you something completely new called rust. This is called a chemical change. Something completely new is created. The physical change, it's still ice cream. Nothing new is formed. Okay? How do you identify certain compounds? Okay? You can identify compounds simply by their physical properties. Physical means how they feel, what they look like. Let's see how they look, taste, touch, feel. How dense. So that's kind of how they feel when you squeeze it. Its melting and freezing points. When, at what temperature with your eyes can you see it start to freeze? At what temperature with your eyes does the compound start to boil? What color is the compound? These are some things that you can use to determine what kind of compound it is. And these are the physical properties of the compound. Taste, touch, see, feel, and hear. Okay? For example, what substance or what compound am I talking about if I say its freezing point is 32 degrees Fahrenheit, its boiling point is 212 degrees Fahrenheit, and it is clear? Using those physical properties, what compound am I talking about? You may have guessed it, water. It freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, it boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's clear. If someone were to tell me those three physical properties, I could probably guess that it is compound and get it correct. Those are the physical properties. Now, some chemical properties of a compound. You cannot know the chemical properties of a compound unless it undergoes a chemical change. So once again, you cannot know the chemical properties of a compound unless you put that compound through some kind of chemical change. For example, burning a compound is an example of putting a compound through a chemical change. If you burn the compound and it turns purple, you know that the compound is probably potassium. Excuse me. If you burn the compound and it turns yellow, you know that the compound is sodium. If you burn the compound, thus putting it through a chemical change, and it changes red, you know that the compound is strontium. Okay? So once again, you cannot know the chemical properties of the compound unless you put it through some kind of chemical change. All right? One of the ways to do that is by burning it. Okay? And if it changes any one of these colors, you can determine what kind of compound it is. I believe that is pretty much it for this lesson. We talked about what a compound is, how compounds are used, chemical formulas, a subscript. You have an example of water is a compound, chemical and physical changes. You know what? I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. You guys are going to do awesome on the test. If you have any questions, once again, you can contact me on the classroom website by going to the Contact Mr. P button. You can reach my cell phone. You can contact me on Edmodo or Facebook. But I look forward to seeing you guys in science class tomorrow.